Let's see what happens.
Shit.
Okay.
You do these at the same time each week?
I try to, but like some people, like last week, Angelo, it didn't work out for him for that day. It was his birthday or whatnot. So like we did it on a Monday or Tuesday, but I try to do them like Saturday around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It kind of works for me. I don't know how it works for everybody. I know out in California they probably still potentially working, or if they're working, whatnot. So yeah, it's been new. I just kind of decided that I was going to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where are you?
I'm in Ohio. I'm in northeastern
Okay.
Ohio.
What part?
Ashtabula County
Okay.
is, well, the county, if you will, but I'm kind of out in the sticks, if you will. I mean, this is like a little private operation. Yeah, I like it this way, to be honest. I thought at times I miss foot traffic because you're not, on the right there. You're not getting people walking in, but I think the quality works better when I have a little more preparation. But
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we're live. Let me check. Let me see if anybody is watching today. Let me ask. I don't want to get too far into anything.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
it's always a crapshoot. We haven't done, like I said, we haven't done a ton of live stuff, but when we do, it's like, oh, good, 3 people, awesome.
Well, I had it set to private, and I'm sitting here right now, like, wow, one person. My gosh, man, what the hell's going on? Okay, all right, public. Wow.
Got you.
There
you go.
It's so confusing sometimes.
YouTube Live seems pretty easy to do. We really, like I said, we haven't done it, but we a few years ago we bought one of those Mevo like live stream cameras.
Oh, those are nice.
And you can they're super cool, man. You can do so much stuff with them. They're like and it's a little bit fish-eyed because it's such a crazy widescreen, but it's awesome for what we do at in small booths like at tattoo shows, because the thing can literally be 2 feet from me and it gets the whole shot, and you can live cut, live stream, live edit, pan, like quick cuts and pan and zoom in and zoom out, and all the cuts actually happen, and they actually record to like the SD card. So if you want to release it later, all those edits are happening in real time and they're being recorded that way. It's like game changer for us.
So somebody's on a tablet, I'm guessing, running it. Do you have like somebody back there?
Yeah, tablet or their phone.
Phone, yeah, okay.
Yep, either a tablet or their phone. Yeah, it's super easy. The Mevo can kind of like tell you, it would recognize both of our faces, and if you start talking, he could just tap your face basically, and it would automatically like crop you appropriately.
What?
And then if I started talking, he could click your face and drag it to me, and it would make a perfectly smooth pan to me, and all that stuff is recorded, in real time.
Right.
It's a cool little thing. They're super cheap and awesome.
Wow, I was actually thinking about doing that for live tattooing because I want to start live tattooing, but the tricky thing is you're always stuck with that one camera angle. Even videotaping, tattoo footage for just a regular YouTube video, it's like to get good footage is such a pain because we work in this area right here where your head's here, your hand's here. The camera's got to be like fighting for attention to get in there. So to go live, I want to make sure that I can actually give a decent product, if you will. So I have looked into those. Of course, they're sold out right now, but from where I was looking, anyhow.
Of course.
But nonetheless,
I'm sure. Yeah, I run into that too, man, constantly. I got a bunch of flack for. I went to Guy Aitchison's place and did an interview with him while he was tattooing, and I had a camera on his. On the tattoo he was doing, and like one on his face and then one on a wide shot, and I ended up spending so much time on his face and on the wide shot, and people kept like, whenever I released the video, people were kind of bashing me over it, like, you could have just had the one camera on his tattoo the whole time and we could actually see what he's doing while he's talking. And I was like, yeah, ideally, except for his head was in the way or the back of his ear was in the way 90% of the time. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
It's the way, I mean, I was recording today while I was tattooing, and I get done and I look at the footage and I'm like, well, half of that's the back of my head. So it's like, well, what do I do with a half of a, all right, well, I feel like a scavenger sometimes, like, all right, well, how can I help somebody out with the footage that I have here and try to put something together?
Right.
But it is what it is. And I saw that and I thought for live, that would be kind of nice, but it would probably still be tricky though, to try to get it in the right angle to begin with and different things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how does that guy know?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you some questions, but while we're at it, how is that? I mean, you're at like what seems to be almost all the conventions when there was conventions. Were you tattooing at
Yeah.
these and interviewing people at the same time? My God.
Yeah, so when we at first we would podcast all 3 days, but what you found is that the busy conventions, like you're in Ohio,
Yeah.
so say at Hell City, Columbus, everybody's tattooing at Hell City, Columbus. So whoever you want to talk to, they're working.
Right.
And so we ended up kind of sitting in our booth doing nothing half the time. So over the years, we kind of worked out this little hybrid schedule where normally I will tattoo Friday and Saturday, and I'll podcast Sunday. Outside of if someone has like, you know, a small opening on Saturday, I'll just make sure that whatever clients I book, that they know that I need to take a 2-hour break or whatever.
Right.
And we just like wrap them up for a little while and they wander around, and then we back team them down and I get back to it. So it's a little bit of, you know, it's a little bit, for the most part, I try to keep a schedule, but you have to work. They're there to tattoo, not to podcast with me.
Right.
So, you know, I have to kind of work around them.
Yeah.
Over the years, that's gotten a little bit easier. But when we first started, no one even knew, you know, who we were. So the idea, really, even what a podcast was, like, we spent the first year trying to explain to tattooers what a podcast was. So
it's not.
So that was a different time.
I guess it hasn't been around that long, has it? No, I just recently started listening to podcasts. I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
But no, so
Yeah.
nobody wanted to give you the time of day, did they? They were like, who are you? What? For a podcast? What is that? Yeah.
Man, no. They had no idea. They had no idea what it was. They didn't want to give me the time of the day. It wasn't, you know, there weren't any real tattoo podcasts at that point. There was one guy before us, Keith Caramello was his name, the tattoo mentor. His was audio only, and he did them through phone interviews. But as far as like live interview, or not live, but, you know, recording video and audio, no one in tattooing was doing that yet. Well, you know, Off the Map, Gabe Ripley and them were just starting to do Off the Map live. We started the same month, I think.
Wow.
And kind of rolled out at the same time, but still, no one knew what it was. The only thing is, I happen to know like Nick Baxter was already a friend of mine. I've been tattooed by him. We had hung out a little bit, so I got him on real early. I got Jeff Insminger on real early, so I got real lucky with a few people.
Right, get the wheels moving.
That had enough of a following to kind of help. But other than that, man, it was just like people like just stared at me like I was an idiot most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was wondering. You got to start somewhere, and I know like it's not always the easiest to find a bunch of people in tattooing to like talk about it freely all the time, especially when they're not quite sure what is going on here. Things have changed a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. At that time, it was, you know, it was still very much. It was the early days. So we started in 2013. So you had Facebook, and I guess you had Instagram and Facebook, but it wasn't like it is now. And the idea of people like live tattooing, like there was no. What's the one that Instagram took stories and stuff from, the like Snapchat and all that? I don't think that stuff was really happening.
Yeah.
So people like having cameras over their shoulder while they were tattooing was not a thing.
Right.
And so people were really hesitant to share. It was still that very kind of like pirate mentality where it's just like, if you're not, you know, if you didn't, I don't know. It was a different, it was a different mindset.
Yeah.
There was no open sharing of information.
Right. You either, if you wanted it, you had to go and earn it.
Exactly.
Where I think things are changing. Obviously, you see it happening everywhere. I caught a little bit of your conversation with the lady out in, I think, Australia. Was she in Australia?
Yeah. She was really nice. That's the first time I met her.
And I caught that. What is it, in Oregon? That you there's no more apprenticing. Is that kind of like what you heard?
Right. No, that's what it is. There's no apprenticing in Oregon. It's you have to go through a school, and so there was a really weird transition there. I've had this discussion with a few Oregon tattooers, and I actually just did a podcast with a woman, really nice woman, who a podcast for her channel that she runs a tattoo school out of Oregon.
No shit.
And and so she started it. First off, you know, as a woman tattooer, which is a bit of a challenge, and then as opening a tattoo school, and took a lot of, took a beat down basically from people whenever she first opened the tattoo school.
I can only imagine.
It's in a weird spot. Yeah, I think it's in a weird spot even still. You know, I don't know what to think about it. Everyone wants to dismiss the idea of tattoo schools, but I think if they're put together properly and they took you know, basically what we're doing here, you and I, with podcasts, and trying to find people who specialize in different things, who have different bits of information,
Right.
and you put them together in like a cohesive way. They're probably way better than a regular apprenticeship.
Right.
But no one would think that. People just think that apprenticeships are the way to go. But I don't know what your apprenticeship was like, but mine was garbage. I mean, like, it wasn't good.
It was bad. It was really bad. There was no apprenticeship there. It was like, I mean, I have a whole video on it, but it was, yeah, I don't know how to word it. I didn't really learn anything. I guess hindsight, when I look back on it, I guess I got to see the fundamentals, the functioning of a tattoo shop, no matter how it was ran, good, bad, or ugly. But that was something new that I look back on and go, okay, that was all right. But I ended up leaving, I think I was 9 months into it. It just was this, I did this at the age of, like, I think it was 30. Went back and started, learned to tattoo kind of thing. So for me, I saw through it and I said, you know what, I can't. This is ridiculous what I was doing, working on vehicles, fixing everything. I mean, I was never even in the tattoo shop. I mean, you pretty much worked for the owner. Whatever he wanted, you did. And then if you were good enough, I might let you touch a tattoo machine for a few seconds or tattoo your, it was just so much time of bull. So yeah, I ended up kind of breaking off and continuing my education on my own until I got to the point where
Same here.
where things and things started to click a little bit better for me. And that's when I realized that, you know what, there's information out there and a lot of people, let me throw my hat in the ring and kind of show that really introductory stuff as that I can, like how to make a line, what are the fundamentals, what do you got to think about. And with the advancements in tattoo machines, it cuts down on a lot of that learning curve with really getting used to using an iron and tuning them and keeping them in tune and settings for what you want to do, so it opened a door, I think, even more so to help people kind of work their way through the trenches of tattooing. But it's not for everybody. You gotta be able to like hang in there for a while.
Right. Yeah. That's the same way. When we first started, like, and what you're doing now, I've been through your channel some too, and it's people romanticize what they think tattooing used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in my experience, 24, almost 25 years in, it never really was that. Not in my life. The where we are right now with, like, if you want to learn, if you're an apprentice and you're at a dead end kind of apprenticeship, maybe it's you, a mentor, and 3 other apprentices, which is not uncommon in some small town in Arkansas or whatever. The fact that they can jump on your channel and like just fix a small problem with a line, like why are my lines wonky, or why don't lines penetrate, or why do they blow out, or whatever it is, they can solve that little problem. I just I feel like we're in a time where that kind of stuff is it's necessary. And the thing is, in my mind, is like I get why back in the 90s no one wanted to share information, because we were making our own needles. We had to have an ultrasonic. We had to have an autoclave.
Yeah.
We had to have all that crap. I mean, you can buy needle cartridges on freaking Amazon or what, from anywhere. They're not checking to make sure you're licensed.
Right.
So if they're selling needles and machines and telling us that we shouldn't be sharing information, like helping people to use those needles and machines, that's the most backwards thing I've ever heard.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, they have access. It's like having access to knives and no knife training. You can buy all the knives you want, but no one's allowed to show you how to operate that knife. So you're on your own. Like, what? So obviously people are gonna stab each other really badly. I don't know how knives are that doesn't really work, but nonetheless, the tattooing and it's a lot to try to figure out all at once on your own. But I think some of the problem is people think like, I'm gonna get into tattooing. Like you watch some, you want to do it. You start it and you kind of realize that there's a little bit more to it than you thought. It's not just like you're not just tracing these lines with them, where you just kind of put your black ink in and just run it. There's a lot more, under the surface happening. And even when you understand, there is so much more to it. I'm learning so much on the regular with each tattoo, with every person I talk to. And, the level of healing, how things last in the skin. There's just so much stuff that goes into it that, I don't know. I don't have all the answers, so it's nice to have other people on, and people can get your side, what you think, and I agree. Tattoo, apprenticeships are changing. I think that if they're going to stick around, they have to change. They have to be more business ran. I want this person to work for me. I want this person to succeed because, let's not lie, they're going to help build your brand, who you are, your company. Let's treat them like, invest in them, like, sure, make them earn it, if you will, but let's do a little more education and less, fucking around, if you will.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But I never did get to introduce you, Jake. I figured real quick, and I'm sure they've seen you long enough up there as we were talking, but this is Jake. If you haven't followed him already, go check him out at the Fireside Tattoo Network. There's a lot of really great stuff. On Instagram, Plug Ugly Art. If you're not subscribed to him, you need to be, because there's a lot of good information over there. Take the time to listen to some of these podcasts, because there are some great nuggets in there that you wouldn't catch if you didn't. So if you drive to work still, then
if you're going somewhere,
right.
If you're not,
It's video though too. There's video, but the video is nice though, because especially when you're talking about the machines and different things, and you can actually see it as well. I think there's a lot of value out of, that video side of it too. But
I agree. I like the video podcast. It would be so much easier if we just did audio only. I know, but we're sitting there with the people. Well, before COVID, we were sitting with the people anyways, and so I kind of like the video. It makes people seem more, I don't know, like accessible. I don't know. There's something about the video that I've always liked more.
yeah.
Although we're starting to even out our iTunes and whatever, Stitcher, whatever, all the Spotify, it's starting to like even out more with our YouTube. So people are listening,
nice.
More and more, it seems like, which means I guess they're driving around or maybe tattooing and listening. I don't really know.
Right. We should get a view. Where can we get a view, Jake? The sky looks amazing, man.
Yeah, so let me see if I can show you where I am. Can you see the lake?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm out. This is our brand new, that's my wife in the way. This is our brand new Silverton motor yacht, 43-footer. Here, I'll walk you along the front.
Dang.
Yeah, let's get sponsored by Silverton if we can. See if we can get, let me see, I'll turn around and look back at it. It's, can you see that pretty well?
That's nice. That is nice.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, thanks. It's beautiful, man. It sleeps 6 people, 3 beds, 2 baths.
What?
Central heat and air, everything you want in a boat and a house.
Wow.
All in one.
So you're ready to go.
Yeah, man. I'd love to just get my tattoo set up out here, and I would never have to go anywhere.
Yeah, you got a little awning in case it rains. You're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be nice though. I could see a downside. That little bit of rockiness in the boat. You'd have to like install some sort of gyro to keep you stable up there. Yeah. It's all.
They have that now. I was just watching a video. It's funny you say that. Yesterday on YouTube, I was watching a video about these like gyroscopes they install right in the center of your hull that like keep your boat perfectly level in crazy water. They're not cheap, but they look cool.
You'll be the first one to buy it for tattooing, for sure.
That's right. Market the Fireside tattoo gyroscope.
There you go.
Tattooing on boats.
Tattooing on boats. It'll be the next big thing. We'll have to all freaking go get boats now and live by the water. We're screwed. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So, Jake, since we're talking about it, well, I guess we're talking about boats, but how'd you get your start in tattooing? We touched on it briefly, maybe a little bit there, but how did you get to where you are today? I'm going to move your camera here.
I started at a different time of tattooing. I started in '96, nice. And I got a really terrible tattoo from just basically a biker here in Memphis at a street shop. It was green eggs and ham, Sami, and that's on my calf. I still have it, and
good memories.
I've thought about covering it, but I don't know if I ever will. But I got that tattoo. It didn't heal well. It didn't go in well. Nothing about it went well. The experience wasn't great. But I had always drawn. I was, probably 19 years old or something like that when I got it, and I'd always drawn, and I thought I drew well, but of course I drew like a high school kid.
Hey.
But I thought I definitely drew better than that guy.
Right.
And so I thought, I was like, well, if that guy can do it, I can do it. So I started kind of searching out apprenticeships, and I ended up at a little, just by chance, a month or two later, I went with a friend to get her eyebrow pierced, and was talking to someone at the front desk about tattoos, and they asked me if I could draw, and I said, yeah, a little. And it turns out the front desk guy was the owner, and he's like, well, come back Monday, and I'm looking for an apprentice. I'll give you a little drawing test. And so I came back Monday, and he gave me, and I was working construction at the time, so I came back Monday after my construction job, like 6 or 7 in the evening, and he asked me to draw a winking skull.
Okay.
And he said, if you could draw a skull, you could draw anything, because if you can give like bone the sense that it's like genuinely moving and conforming and stuff, then you've solved all the drawing problems. That was his theory. Okay. You've solved all. So mind you, this dude cannot draw. That was just his idea on what someone who could draw could. And so I drew a winking skull, and it wasn't good, but it was like I put a do-rag on it, and in my my winking eye, I put a scar through it, know, and I did a few little tricks. Nice. And so he thought I was badass. He was just like,
"You're the man. You're the man." We're retiring, babe. We found him. We found the guy. He's gonna run. Finally.
Let's get back and relax. This dude's gonna bring in the dough.
But that got you in the door, though. Who knew?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's how it started, man. I didn't really get to tattoo like you were talking about your apprenticeship, doing mechanic work and stuff like that. Mine, we had this. We have a Navy base that's in Millington, Tennessee. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, and Millington's maybe 30 or 40 minutes outside of Memphis.
Okay.
And I drove this like Mitsubishi Eclipse to pick up 4 or 5 Navy kids at a time and bring them back to the shop to get tattooed. It was like a makeshift shuttle. And so that was the majority of my apprenticeship. So anytime someone bashes us online for teaching tattooing, about like that, It's like,
right.
Like,
yeah, you don't want me to. Okay, yeah, because that's really the way it was too, man. I didn't understand at what point do we learn tattooing, and then sometimes, I don't know about you. Well, I don't know. They're still out there working. I'll never name the shop, but I wasn't a big fan of some of the work coming out of there and the style, and I realized was actually going to be teaching me. And I was like, well, if that's as good as it gets, then if I'm learning, then that's about as good as I can get. And I realized also that I didn't want a cap on my, where I can go. And I felt like there was definitely going to be a cap with time frames on tattoos, with like all kinds of extra crap that, not going to work out. And trust me, I wanted it so bad. And I thought the dream was over for me. I don't know about when you left, but I knew it was taboo, but I was like, I want to still do this. Like,
Same way. I didn't know what my future was leaving. I left in the middle of that apprenticeship. And I did save up enough money to buy a used autoclave. So I had one in my kitchen at my house, like next to the microwave. And so I was fumbling, but it was such a disaster, man. I was tattooing friends, and they were confident, they weren't confident in my tattooing, but they were confident in my drawing enough that I was just literally telling people like, this didn't go in the way I was hoping, but once I figure this out, I'll fix it. And I felt like every week I was saying like, once I figure this out, I'll fix that. Right. It was just like destroyed left and right out of my house. And that's just shit. Unfortunately, that's the way that it went.
And I when you said autoclave, it clicked. I was like, oh my God, you're right. Time frame was totally different. There was no, I know we talked about before, but again, when I asked, when I left, we used autoclaves and everything at the shop, but I realized at that point, like, wait, there's disposable stuff? Like, I don't need an autoclave, I don't need this, I can, totally different nowadays. Yeah. But then you're right, and that stuff was not this expensive when you need all that stuff.
Yeah, there were really, if there were, someone can probably correct me because it was early on in my career, but in the mid-90s, I don't even know that I could buy pre-made needles. I was buying needles from a shop, and I hate to say this, live on YouTube, but I was like scrubbing and re-autoclaving some of those needles for small tattoos because I just didn't have enough.
Right.
Of them, Like that's all I knew to do. And like I said, it was a different time in tattooing, but the idea of a pre-sterilized anything, I had never heard. I don't know if it existed. If it did, I'd never seen it.
It was pretty.
Of course, it was so even the internet. I mean, the internet existed, but you didn't use
it.
You know.
Yes. Yeah. That's the internet's been around for a while, but it's really only been the last like 10. So I don't know, but more than that. Probably like 20 years, I guess. I feel like since year 2000, did anybody actually use the internet? Even then, it was like pretty limited. So yeah.
Right.
That is totally different, and that'd been way harder to do. Nowadays, they definitely have it a lot easier. Wow. So Jake, you're out here on a boat. Where are you from?
Yeah.
I know where you're from.
Oh, Memphis. Yeah, Memphis, Tennessee. The best city in Tennessee. The big brother to Nashville, Tennessee.
The big brother.
The home. And and so right now I'm actually in Heber Springs, Arkansas. It's about 2.5 or 3 hours from Memphis, and my wife and son and I spend basically every weekend here, especially in the summers. We come out and we hang out on the boat. We just got this boat, but we've had an old beater of a houseboat for about 12 years, just this old steel, kind of like a camper on the water, basically.
Nice.
We've had that for years, and we just bought this. We just bought this rig a few weeks ago, so we've been really enjoying it. It's awesome. And then it's like I feel like we need to film some rap videos or
just start throwing some money around.
I know.
Oh yeah. Well, now that you can do podcasts, not
anyway.
Yeah, you can be on the water all the time now. Once you get the gyro, you're done.
What's a gyro? So
yeah.
I just need sponsorships back up. COVID. A little bit. Yeah,
COVID has hurt a lot of people in a lot of ways, to say the least. How is it? So are you able to tattoo yet, or?
Yeah, in the deep South, they don't take it. This is Trump country, for most of people around here. Which I'm not. I'm not super political or social, but I like this area of the world is it's a deep South, man. It's a different breed.
Gotcha.
They were the ones that you read about. They were anti-masks, anti-closing down anything, it's all a hoax. So we did shut down. They did shut tattoo shops down here from probably mid-March until late June, early July.
Yeah.
But with me, I did shut down as well. But I work. So the way that I work, I'm in a private studio, and I take on maybe, I don't know, 10 to 15 projects at a time. Mm-hmm. And usually they're anywhere from 4 sittings to 7, 8, 9 sittings, something like that. Wow. Sleeves, back pieces, whatever they are, or even small tattoos. I'm not a fast tattooer. I can spend 3 sittings on a forearm tattoo. It's just like I'm just not fast.
Right.
So because I had such a tight knit little like group of clients. I took a few months off, and my clients started reaching out and basically just saying, hey, I've been quarantined as well. I'm working from home, if it's cool, I'd like to keep my appointment. So I started working people back in. Hey, Emily, will you bring me a charger as well? Do we have one out here? Sorry, I just got a low.
Oh yeah.
This on my phone.
No problem.
Cool, but so I quit from I probably quit for 6 weeks to 2 months, something like that, and then I started working people back in. What about you? What's it like in your world?
We were shut down for almost the exact same amount of time, and excuse me, the time was actually nice for a little while there, but I back in. Now I have noticed that quite the contrary, though. It seems like, I don't know, like people were ready before the COVID. Now after, everything's like, it's just now are people kind of like coming again, if you will. Where before it seemed like they were a little skittish, and I get it. But it's going good now. It lately has been really nice. I kind of find that I split my time a bit. I don't book myself to the oblivion. I make sure I have enough time. I value time personally more than money, if you will. So for me, I like to have that time, and as long as I'm doing what I need to do to maintain things and keep things rolling and whatnot, then that's what I'll do. So I split my time up to around like 50% of it my working days are for tattooing. The other are for other ventures like YouTube, catching up on things, ordering, whatever. And in that 50% that is like YouTube and other time is where like family time will be added too. So the kind of crunching into that a little bit. So YouTube's 25, tattooing's 50, family's 25. It's just, I'm sure you know, it's quite a balance to try to kind of keep everything going. And so as people have come back, I've actually just kind of still enjoying like the pace. So I'll book less, if you will. I don't know how to word it. Like I kind of enjoy not being slammed or whatnot. Not that I ever really, really was, but I just kind of like it a little bit more now. Really long way around answering that. I don't know why it took so long. I had to go in a circle to find the answer for myself.
It's that's the thing when we ran into, like when COVID first hit, the free time was really nice. Like we found that there was just stuff that I get caught up in my own head a lot. So like you're talking about family stuff I didn't really think about. Like with like we have a 10-year-old and just like being at home and nothing was open, and he and I just started like I just gotten this iPhone 11 Pro and I was trying to use it for video. So I'd ordered off of Sandmark all these little like different filters and cages and stuff to make. And so we just started, like we spent 2 or 3 days just playing basketball and filming ourselves. And like I would roll on my back on a skateboard and hold the cage with the camera while he did like crossovers and layups and stuff like that. And it's like, when would you ever find time to screw with stuff like that, you know? Right. And so we did that early in COVID, and then now that things are semi back to normal, it's like, man, how much of that can you hold on to? You know, that's what I think comes out of all this. I hope. So. I
think you're right too. Like, it's you have a lot of time, but once you go back to life, it's like, how much of that can you keep around? When can you have it? How do you make time for that? And it's an interesting battle, and especially when you take on other ventures. And I know you're with podcasts and YouTube and plenty of other ways you get yourself out there, that it can take time. I don't know. I edit all my stuff. I do all that stuff, and there's a lot of time in it. And you get better, though. You get faster. You get more efficient. Same with tattooing, you know. It's just one of those things. You just, sooner or later, you get quicker. You get better. I'm going to try to fix your screen there.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. It bounces all over the place all the time.
Okay. What is this, by the way? What, like, I can see our like some of our like audio levels or something down here. What is this all built into YouTube?
No, this is OBS. It's a.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I do it in OBS, and then I when you go over to live, there's that stream button. You click on stream, and then you just put your code into OBS and they link. And I spent like 2 days, like we're talking about time. This is part of one of those things. Like it took me 2 to 3 like full days to figure out how this crap works, because I'm not a tech person at all. My brother builds the computers. He does all this stuff for me electronically, but I got to try to use his stuff. So a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of trying, and the hardest part was trying to figure out how to bring somebody else into it. Like, this is all easy to work, and I found Skype was an option. So I don't know if it's the best option, but it's the one I'm going with. And I just figured it's better to just jump in and try it out and see how it goes, and kind of maneuver and learn along the way. And the first guy I had on the show helped me out a lot. He knew a lot about OBS as well, so he helped me get my settings set up. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been doing this thing the last couple of months. I think there's one next month with Guy Hitchison and Gabe Ripley. It's called the Virtual Tattoo Gathering, and they've been pushing me on our like prep calls and stuff to play with OBS for our like virtual booth or whatever, so that we have more control. I've basically just been like, setting my phone up, and we log in on Zoom, and then they drop me right into our virtual booth or to the seminar if I'm teaching a seminar or doing a critique or whatever it is. But they're like, if you use OBS, you have a lot more. You can finesse the controls a lot more and have multiple cameras and all that. And we just haven't done it yet. But that's it. That's interesting that you said that. I need to check that out. So you're going from. How does it work? You going from OBS to Skype and then Skype to YouTube?
No. So here's what I did. And I'm going to try to explain it the best I can, because it's it's a mixture of like 6 different YouTube videos I had to watch, but there's an NDI source. And so as your NDI source, I think I set it as Skype, but you have to go download a couple of like additional things for OBS. It was links in a video. I like downloaded those, and because for sure it was all gonna be a waste of time. And I had my wife Skype call, and it worked. I was like, holy crap, okay. So really, you just need an NDI source for OBS, and you can. What
does that mean? What's NDI?
I don't know.
Okay.
It says down here, if I were to turn this NDI source off, it's gonna turn your screen off. Okay. So somehow it sets it for Skype, like the little download thing you do. It's like a Skype add-on thing. Yeah, I couldn't teach this to save my life.
All right. I don't mean to get in the weeds and stuff like that. I know people want to hear about tattoos. If they're like, you're doing stuff on YouTube that I don't know how to do yet, so I thought I would pick your brain a little bit more.
Yeah, no, let me know in the future if you ever, I'll help what little I can. So
perfect.
Your style of work, how did that come about? Like, I mean, it's weird. Maybe you don't look at your work and go, "Oh, I have a style." But when I look at your work, I know it's your work. It has that real vivid colors. It's like paintishly, like an oil painting. I mean, it's like it's pretty cool. And I've seen like your tattoos mid work, how they kind of like you have color, like these blocks of color, and how it's like. The next session you start to shape it. It's like this mind-blowing thing. Like, and how did you get to the point where that's how that's what you were doing?
Yeah. I don't know that I definitely didn't set out with a goal in mind to have whatever's evolved. I've just done a ton of tattoos, and it started to happen because one thing that I never liked doing, even though I worked to get good at it because of the time that I came up in tattooing, was like single pass line work. It made my like heart race. It made me uncomfortable, feel like I had to do bold lines and or like clean lines first pass.
Right.
And so I don't know, I didn't do well with it. So I got away from it, and I started kind of like doing wash lines and just trying to get what I started calling a permanent stencil. I would just like get rid of like get past the point that I needed the stencil, and then start to sculpt up from there. And then from that, I mean, I fumbled around for so many years. I was not a good tattooer for, I started in 96. I would say up to like 2007, 2008, I was still doing very mediocre tattoos. I just never, I was in a pretty decent shop, and I'm not in a super competitive tattoo town. So
right.
In Memphis, I was probably a good tattooer, but, not compared to what you see, now.
Globally.
Globally, yeah. But then I started taking painting workshops, and I limited my palette based on a couple of different painters that I was working with in workshops based on their palettes. And then I remember taking this workshop with I think it was, sorry, we got a plane flying over me, with Casey Baugh, I think is who it was, that said at the end of his paintings, he comes back and tries to like find where he could just add 3 or 4 sharp edges, or 3 or 4 like where he could take multiple brush strokes and turn them into a single brush stroke, where it looked like he carved a cheek in one brush stroke this way and another one this way, even though it actually took him 30 brush strokes to make that. Whoa. He goes back and simplifies it. And for whatever reason, that translated to tattooing for me, where I was like, oh, I could probably like build stuff up, because I'd gotten to where I understood when skin was over. I can read skin pretty well.
Right.
Like, I got to where I knew when I pushed it too far, and so I would just push it as far as I could, and then in that last kind of sitting or at the end of the tattoo, I would come back and hit my outlines then, or I would come back and like simplify something then, and I think that's how I ended up with this kind of painterly, or whatever it is.
Right.
I think that was the start of it. Is that I started doing all my lines at the end, because I started realizing that I really didn't need lines as much as I thought I did.
That is, in my mind, it's ballsy. I think it's like really like to jump in there and then afterwards kind of really start to refine things. But I guess that gives you like the time to really start to see a piece come together. It's like okay, and then you start, making things happen. Yeah, that's definitely really cool, and it's one of those things you have to like just do. Like, you just do it, and it's not. I don't think it's one of them things where you could probably go ahead and teach somebody. Let me show you how. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
unique, and it's cool.
It'd be difficult to teach, I think. I mean, definitely when people bring their work, we get, I'm sure you do too, we get people sending work in for critique all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel good about at the end of people's tattoos where I feel like they can make something stronger or push something or let something fall back. Like maybe the edge of something is way too bold and it's competing with the focal point. And I feel like I can help people at that point. But during the tattoo, I don't know. I think you just have to explore a little bit. And really part of it for me was that I always felt confident that I had enough bedside manner with my clients, and I worked with them enough to develop enough trust that even if they left us sitting and weren't completely like happy with the tattoo, I could, like, even if I was bullshitting them a little bit, I could say, like, this is an underpainting. Next time I'm going to come back, I'm going to punch this, and I'm going to pull that, and I'm going to da-da-da. And I would use a bunch of vocabulary that made it sound like I knew what I was talking about. And then I would, when they came back and it was healed, it was so much easier for me to be like, oh, well, that didn't work at all. And this, not out loud, but,
I
did myself, like, that didn't work, and that did work. And if I punch this up, and, I muted that too much. If there's anything I do too much, it's a lot of times I'll mute colors too much and realize that the whole thing is softer than I want it to be, and then I have to like punch it at the end. But when that happens, a lot of times I get my best results because I've got this like soft, almost too soft underpainting. So that last sitting, I get to come in and like bright pink there and bright green there and a punch in a big black line there, and all of a sudden it all starts to like separate.
Yeah, and I was wondering because you have the color works really obviously. It's it's wonderful though, the color work. But I was wondering the same thing because it looks like so smooth. It's just like I cannot put color in. Like, I mean, I do, and I make tattoo, but I'm never. I haven't really dove in deep into like really color work. And to say the least, it was just. If you're watching, go to @PlugUglyArt and check his workout over there because you'll understand what I'm saying. It's just a really nice, soft, like it's part of the skin, and I know that's obvious, but it's just hard to put into words. And I guess when I think of color work, I think of color work on that level, and so it overwhelms me because I haven't really dabbled deeply in color. And I realize the time that goes into that, the amount of time that you probably have in some of these pieces is got to be incredible. Just packing, just putting the color in and gradiating that way. It's remarkable.
Yeah, that's a credit to my clients, man. I've got such a great client base that just trusts me to keep saturating, and like they don't care. Like if they think the tattoo is done and I say I need another sitting, man, they're willing to drop that $1,000 for the next sit. They're just like, if you think it needs more. And I think it's because I'm genuinely not trying to make more money off the tattoo. I would love for the tattoo to be finished for less money. I just like, I don't know. I'm nitpicky about it, and I don't want them to end up out somewhere. Memphis is a big city, but it's kind of a small tattoo town.
Okay.
And if there's any chance that someone asks them about the tattoo and it's not up to a level that I want it to be, and they say, "Oh, Jake Meeks did this tattoo," I don't want to be embarrassed. I want to make sure. I want to make sure that it's solid, and that's what I tell them the exact same way. I'm like, it's a pretty good tattoo right now, but if you give me 6 more hours on it, I'll try to like give it that next. And Guy Aitchison told me once actually that he was like, it kind of gave me the freedom, I think, to think this way. He was like, if you give me another hour, I can always make any tattoo better. And in a traditional kind of tattoo mindset, that doesn't, if you're like line, black work, color, highlights done,
right?
Then that doesn't apply. But when you're tattooing like Guy does, and like what I've tried to do, you can always push and pull. There's always subtleties that really take it to that kind of next level. And whenever he I don't remember what the conversation was about, but when he told me that, he was like, I could always, like, if you gave me another hour, I can always make it better. I was like, yeah, I feel that way too, but I was almost kind of embarrassed to think that way. It was like, well, I should be better, and I should be able to finish it. You know what I mean?
I do.
I shouldn't need another hour.
Right.
But if he needs another hour, then I can. then so should I.
You can have it.
Right.
It is weird though, and that's kind of the thing. Is it's tricky because yes, I think every tattoo should have at least 2 sessions. Like even if it's a 1-session tattoo, like a 4 or 5 hour set 1-session tattoo or 6, I want to see it again because that tattoo should have been a 7-8 hour tattoo. But the skin can only take so much. You have to let it die. You have to make smart choices when you're in the skin, in my opinion. And sometimes those super finite things, they have to wait. And I have customers who are totally, would you like to, no, I love it. It's great. It's great. It's great. And so for me, sometimes I have to let those things go. But if I could, every single one of them would be back in for at least one more session. Like, you can call it a touch-up session. But the problem is once I get back into a tattoo, it's like another 3 hours. Or, at least just you start touching one thing and then it's just it's like a bomb explodes. You're all over the fucking thing.
Yeah.
But
if you've for the people watching or whoever watches this in the future, if you've never come back into one of your heel tattoos, settled tattoos, no matter how perfect it is, and just found wherever the sharpest edge or the boldest line or the whatever clean like focal point should be, and just dropped a big heavy line on top of that settled stuff, like it changes it. And I don't care if you're like, if you did the most perfect line work to start a tattoo and then you packed white and baby blue and yellow and whatever up against that line, it affected that line. Whether you think it did or not, it affected that line. Even if you're setting yellow ink on top of black ink, it affects the edge of that line. And so if you want it to be as clean as it can, and I've done this and looked at it and watched them settle, and I believe this completely. Like it's not just when it's fresh. If you do your black lines or whatever, if you're a traditional tattooer, do all your color up against it, let it come back healed and hit that black line again, it pulls it back up front and it stays that way. It doesn't, when it heals, it doesn't go away. It stays that way. You can tell that you made that second pass on that line just by laying it. Even though those colors were lighter that you bumped up against it, they affected it. And if you can lay black on top of it again, it definitely makes that line jump back at you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about that. There's certain areas that I tend to go to when I'm touching a tattoo up or reworking or adding something to it. But I never thought about the fact that, especially in color, a lot of times you're just running right over those black lines. A lot of times they're just they can take it. They can take it. That color can live in there with the black, and we'll see black through it. But I never would have ever thought to go back and just reline those, some of those spots and let it stand out, because it's going to be a darker black versus everything that's healed and settled. I hope everybody got that. Cause
it definitely will. I learned this inadvertently probably 15 years ago. There was a tribal, back in the tribal days, I did a tribal back of the neck piece, like just a traditional kind of American style tribal on the back of the neck. And the client came back a year or so later and wanted to see if I could I was doing another tattoo, and they're like, "Can you lay color over this at all? I wonder if it could be we could add a green tint to it." So I used a dark, that kind of deep green concentrate. It was before there were concentrates, but it was whatever the equivalent of a dark green was back then. And I laid it right over the top of that black, and that thing went from a black tribal to a dark green tribal. Even when it was healed, you could tell there was green over the tribal. And I was like, "Oh, you know what? You can affect black ink with color ink. It's just this." We listen to our mentors that, and they have these ideas, and you have to separate what you've learned from what you've experienced. And if you see you can cover black with green, maybe not cover it, but you can't affect black with green. And you see that happen. Well, if you can do it in a tribal piece, you can do it by bumping green against a black line too.
Right. And
that color is all kind of living in the skin together. It's not like black is sitting on top and the other colors go away. They're all living there together. And
it is strange. I think that's the part when a lot of theory, whatnot, has to go into that. When especially if you're covering colors with colors, they're sitting next to each other, right? So they're gonna essentially become this alternate shade or color. I look at good color work, and not to toot your own horn for you, but you have really nice color work, and
thank you. I appreciate that.
That is some, I don't know, I haven't quite gotten there. I haven't been doing this nearly, Jake. You've been doing this for what, over 20 years now?
Yeah, it'll be 20. It was 24 years this last May. I'm about to hit a quarter of a century next May. Crazy, huh?
Wow. So there's a wealth of knowledge. I hope, again, go check him out. I'm sure most people should be following you if they're not, but if they're not, go check him out. Wealth of knowledge, man. That is awesome.
Thank you.
24 years. Wow.
24 years.
Yeah. I did 11 in the Marine Corps, and I'm 20 years and one. Yeah, but that felt like an eternity. You did 24 years tattooing back when things were not we can talk on the internet and we can share information and we can dispose of things. Gosh.
Did you tattoo in the Marine Corps or no?
I tattooed myself a bit in the Marine Corps, and I was way early on. And you know what happens? Well, for me, what happened was the word gets around quick that you're, trying to teach yourself. There was no, this is why we talk about YouTube. Wasn't any YouTube. I had this book, and it was about 5 pages long, and it had nice black and white pictures to show you how to set up the machine and the tube and rubber bands. And so I was,
Do you remember
in my
the
kitchen.
Book? What was it, like a Spalding A to Z thing? What was
it was kind of like that. You know what? I think I have it. I'll probably try to find it. Who was it from? It was off of eBay. I bought the whole thing off of eBay. I still have. If I can think about where it's at, I might get it. But and funny enough though, it was everything. Like looking back on it now, I'm shocked that I was able to tattoo myself and make it look okay. Because I look at that book now, I'm like, how did I read through this and even put a tube in a machine? And I was kind of impressed in hindsight. But anyhow, I tattooed a few things on myself. My ex-wife at the time, and then people just think you can tattoo anything. I walk outside to go to work, and it's like, hey, Dave, I was thinking about a tattoo. Like on the back, like how about this line coming out? What? I tattooed like 4 lines on my wife, this just really janky cross on myself, and you want the Mona Lisa. So I did a few more of that, and then I just kind of like put it away. I was like, all right, I didn't fuck anybody up. Nobody got sick. And it was the same thing. Nothing was disposable then. So I was trying to boil stuff and clean that. I mean, needles were cheap at that time. It wasn't that long ago, but that was, that was halfway through your career. That I started dabbling into stuff.
Man, it's funny you mentioned that. It's funny how you can be absolutely terrible at something, and just because you own the machine and you've done it once before, there's no shortage. People will ask well, how did you start out tattooing? Did you tattoo skins or pig's ears or whatever? And I was like, man, I had a line of people who didn't give a shit. They just wanted a free tattoo.
But the funny thing is then when I actually started doing it for real, I mean, if my family, my brothers and dad and them, they all offered up skin, but there was nobody around. Where were you? Where was all these people when I was doing it out of a garage, man? Now I'm in an apprenticeship that I was in. I can't find nobody who wants me to tattoo them. It's still damn near free then, but it's just weird how that works. How did you start the Fireside Network? I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, or even your podcast and whatnot. I mean,
it started just as we called it Fireside Tats, like Fireside Chats. It was just a podcast.
Oh, okay.
And that was that was the original name. And it came from I was tattooing a guy named Mike Bledsoe, and he started what turned out to be a huge podcast called Barbell Shrugged. It was a CrossFit strength and conditioning podcast, one of the very early strength and conditioning podcasts. I was tattooing him, and he introduced me to Joe Rogan, who had just kind of started podcasting, and he was saying, I'm going to start this podcast about strength and conditioning and CrossFit. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And so he had bought a bunch of gear, and he was showing me some of his footage or whatever. And I was doing a sleeve on him, so I probably worked on it for 40 or 50 hours or something. And over that period of time, we started watching or listening to podcasts while we were tattooing. And I was like, he was like, there are podcasts on everything. And so we were I was listening to another one around the same time called Basic Brewing Radio. Basic Brewing Video is about home brewing beer. And nice. I'm a big, for people who watch our show, they know I'm a huge beer guy, so I drink a lot of beers. And so I've been a home brewer for years. And so I was listening to Basic Brewing Radio about all these tricks on how to brew better beer. And I was like, man, I wonder if there's anything like this on on tattooing. And Mike Bledsoe, who did the Barbell Shrug podcast, he's like, I'm sure there is. And so he starts searching at that time, iTunes or whatever the podcast thing was at that time. And he was like, man, I can't really find one. And so I went home that night and I was looking for one. I couldn't find one. I found that one from that, like I mentioned earlier in the show, Keith Caramello. It was called the Tattoo Mentor. He was around before me. It was audio only, but he was not consistent. He had done one 8 months before I started looking or something. He did another one a year later. They weren't regular. Right. And so I was talking to Bledsoe about it, and he was like, you should just start one, man. They're not hard. And he's like, here's the list of stuff that I bought. and he basically wrote down the stuff he got at Guitar Center. Like he went to Guitar Center and bought mics and whatever stuff we started out with.
Nice.
So I just took his list to Guitar Center and bought it and started and talked to a friend of mine, David Evans. I was tattooing with him at the time, and I was like, hey man, let's just sit down and do like a shop talk thing. Like it's just the two of us in the back room, you know,
right.
Like after you finish tattooing all day, it's like, let's just have like a shop talk kind of thing. And so, yeah, that's how it started. It just started as just like this little interview show. And man, for probably a year, we were getting 9 to 18 views an episode. Nothing. Like people
really?
did not care. It was it was crickets. And so I was enjoying. We were like hanging out, and drinking some bourbon, drinking a few beers, talking about tattoos, having some dinner. So it was more about that like Monday night experience with David and the guys that were filming. It was more about us hanging out. And so we just kept kind of chipping away at it. And the next thing you know, it was like, oh, this is episode 50. Crazy. You know, and it's like, oh, that's episode 100. And then from there, we started, I don't know what made me start it, but I decided to do like a little technique episode. So we did one with the camera over the shoulder, which is looking at yours, it's kind of like what you're doing now, where you're solving specific problems.
Right.
And that's whenever I realized, like, our first technique video, like our regular videos at that point were maybe up to 300, 400, 500 for a podcast video for a good one.
Okay.
A good number. And then suddenly we did this thing on like hand drawing full sleeves. I drew out a sleeve with markers. And I was just talking about how I followed the muscles and how I squinted and how I stepped back away from it, just like basic layout stuff. And that video hit like 25,000 views in a month. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is what it's about. So we started like dropping those in. But yeah, that was it. We still don't do the techniques as much because they're a little more labor intensive for me.
Right.
Because I have to, it's like having to do the voiceovers or having to like get all the way that I do it. You may have a better way to do it than I do, but the way I do it is I just basically put a camera up over my shoulder, record a bunch of video, and then I go back and watch it and kind of talk over it, overdub it, and clip it down. And it takes forever.
It does.
And so I just don't do it that much. It's just slow.
It is. It takes quite a bit of time. And the problem is sometimes like for me, sometimes I try to give regular content, and so there's always something to show or explain, of some way. But sometimes finding that can be difficult because you're right. I'll tattoo, videotape everything, and you get it all back in here, and you're like, okay, well, the part that I really wanted to show people and talk about, it's just my head. So I have to use this other footage and think, okay, how can I explain something that's here that I think can come across, right? So you're like, all right, yeah, that can really show them this, So you get that, you edit that all up, and then you set up and watch that and record yourself watching that and talk over that, then come back over and upload it all in there and cut all that and edit that. And then you're like, okay, cool. And then at the end, you're like, well, what the hell do I call this?
Right.
Tattooing again? I'm tattooing. I don't. It's weird. I don't know. And that's why it seems like it's so time consuming sometimes. But I guess I feel like I kind of took this thing on, so I got to kind of like keep going. And I don't want to let people down if that's a thing. But I'm learning so much through doing this. It's kind of mind blowing that. Like, had I not just, started making some videos, and I didn't try to make tattooing videos right out the gate. I thought maybe I'll do some drawing, some charcoal work. I like working with charcoal. So I did a couple, and similar. Those were pretty flat for a long time. Then, like, one tattoo video started getting some views and stuff, and then people were like, well, they wanted more tattoo stuff, so I just kept making tattoo stuff, and then we're still making tattoo stuff, and that's pretty much how it started over here. But in the process, I'm just shocked by how much I've learned, and that people can, sort of watch me learn as well. And as I learn it, I just try to teach it. So I don't go back and watch all my videos because for me it's kind of weird watching yourself on camera. You watch it enough while you edit, you don't want to see it anymore. So sometimes I think about reworking a video, but I'm like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go look at myself anymore. Yeah.
Same way. I feel the same way. I don't really watch anything, and actually I used to really pride myself on answering every comment, every question, everything, but we have so many hundreds of videos now that on any given day we might have 150 like comments. Like and I get all the notifications on my email that says comment on this, comment on that.
Yes.
And I was like, and for a while I tried to keep up, but it's like, man, when I'll read a comment and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like that video was so long ago, I don't even know the context. And so I've gotten away from like watching, from listening, from even reading feedback, and I just try to like come up with something new and interesting to do. And I hope that doesn't affect. I hope people don't think that I'm, becoming an asshole or like I'm too good to respond to them. But that's really not it at all. I love to. And anytime I catch anyone at a convention, I'll have an hour-long conversation with anybody about anything. But it's just like going through those comments that like I feel so out of touch a lot of times.
I couldn't. It's very tough because I still do. I try to reply and to as many comments, but sometimes when I sit down to make a video or to edit, I'll go, I better go check comments, and there's like 55 of them, and that's just the morning's messages, and then Instagram messages and Facebook messages, and I had to rework my whole business cards and stuff so that people used to hit me up on Messenger or Facebook like, hey, for tattoos. I just separate email altogether. If you want a tattoo, you email this email, and then that'll start the process, because I was trying to sift through a lot of messages in different places, and it was getting difficult. It still is. I try to reply to as many of them as I can. It's hard. A lot of them are repetitive, but I know what it's like. I try, but I'm getting to the point where I'm going to have to, start tailoring back from that. I want to do it when I can, but it is. I mean, I'm sure that was difficult for you. I'm sure it still is, because you read all these comments. Not like you just stop looking at them, but I would like to reply back the best I can, and sometimes it could take me 15 minutes to send one message to one person, and now I got, and like you were just saying, 50, 100 more to go, and who do you reply to? Who gets the special treatment? It's tricky. It's tricky. So I try to find maybe the ones where I can reply quickly, or this or that. And plus, it's difficult because all these people support us. They're watching your content, they're talking to you, they're encouraging you, and you just it's difficult to be like, and I'm getting there. And I guess I'm live, so obviously I'm talking to subscribers who are watching as well. But just know I'm trying. It's a good chunk of time. It's a good chunk of time.
Yeah. If someone's following us both, same thing here. I feel the exact same way. It's definitely not that I want to ignore anyone. I completely appreciate it. But like you said, a lot of times it's repetitive, so it's hard to answer the same questions. And you're not going to go like read above comment, read above reply or whatever. But a lot of times it's the same thing that people are asking over and over. And then a lot of times, it's just hard to, and like you were just saying, I don't like to go back and watch myself, because I always feel like I said something stupid, or oh wow, I had 4 beers by the time I said that. I don't even know if I believe that. So,
right. Or what needles were you using in this video? Like you said, exactly. It's very tricky. Like, ooh, I probably was using a 14 idea. Curve mag, I think.
Probably.
Yeah, it is tricky, but I don't know. I never thought. I always thought like I would forever reply to everything, and I never thought, especially in the beginning, where you get a comment and you're like, "Oh, cool, someone's watching," and you really reply back, and I still love that. I think it's awesome. I still encourage people to comment, because people will pinpoint things that I'm doing. Like, hey, you could probably do this or that, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, some people, okay, you're being a dick. But to other people, it's like, thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you for the heads up. I mean, I've posted stuff to Instagram, and people have told me, like, hey, you forgot to cross that T in that. It's like, oh, okay, thank you. I'm going to see them next week anyhow for their second session. I'm going to cross that T. So, I mean, there's so much positivity that comes out of it. It's crazy.
Sorry, I got a boat passing by me. I couldn't hear. But, the reason I still love to see the people are commenting, after 7 or 8 years of us doing this, I've seen relationships form between our followers, like people who they start a conversation. I realize it's like the thread is crazy long, and I haven't had any input on it, but it's people like someone asked a question about something I addressed in a video, someone else responded to it, then that started a conversation, and literally there are people that met through our show that are doing collabs now and stuff.
Wow.
Like they're friends, they share booths with each other at conventions and stuff like that. And it's like, man, that's the best thing that could have come.
That is so cool, man, to see the change that wow, you know, all that hard work. You've been doing this for 8 years, right? The podcast?
Yes. We started in early 2013, so seven and a half years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's, man, that's the coolest part about it is you see people who are like, I've met people at conventions. That's how I know this. I've met people at conventions who are booth together, and they like flag me down, or they come over to the booth. They're like, hey, man, we're sharing a booth. We travel all the time. Our wives are best friends, and we met each other in the comments of one of your videos. That kind of stuff.
Crazy.
Like, oh,
that's crazy. That's some so deep stuff, man. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, you know, it's like the butterfly effect. You know, you have like, you put a little video out, and then all of a sudden, like, some bad collaborations come out of it, like back pieces that change tattooing and stuff like that. You never know. You know?
Yeah.
Super cool.
That is cool. So, at least you got positivity going on in your comments. How was you've been doing this for a while, so I'm sure you've gotten in the beginning more so than maybe now, but does anybody ever give you crap for what you're doing? Okay, so more so than
yeah, less now. And I was actually, we should do this when we finish this. I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd love to have you on my show to ask the same type of questions. That's where I think that because I was looking at some of your videos, and one that popped up was like how to lay a stencil on a kneecap, or something like that. And I was like, okay, that's a problem that someone really seeks out, and they want that solution to that problem. One that really took off for us 6 or 8 years ago was it was called like 3 Simple Ways to Build Up Line Weight, and it took off, and it got a ton of great feedback and a ton of terrible feedback. And what I thought was, because there were other, you know, what we might call kitchen magicians who were not good tattooers who were putting out similar videos, and I didn't feel like they got the pushback that I did. And what I came to realize is that my advice was good advice. And I think the people who respected tattooing were like, hey, dude, why are you putting this out here? You should know better, is basically what I got out of it. You should know. Yeah. Like, these kitchen magicians don't know any better. You should know better. And but the thing that I started thinking of was like, if there was this online marketer that I listened to that I was talking to once at a marketing conference, and he said, you know, if someone's trying to lose 20 pounds before their 10th reunion or whatever, they're trying to drop 20 pounds, they don't want your 30-minute podcast on diet and exercise. They want to know, what do I order when I'm standing in line at Krispy Kreme to lose 20 pounds in the next 30 days, or whatever. That's an exaggeration. But whatever. Right. I want like a thing, you know. And the thing is, I mean, of course, you can't do that. Like you can't solve people's knee tattoo problems by telling them how to place a stencil, but you addressed that one concern, and by doing that, you earned their respect enough for them to take your advice on future videos. Right. And so my thing is like, if you're not willing to meet them where they are and solve that really specific little problem, you'll never convince them, or they'll never listen to you long enough for you to say, hey, dude, I appreciate that you like my channel. YouTube, unfortunately, is not the best place to learn to tattoo. You're going to want to find a great mentor. You know what I mean? If I don't solve that little problem on line weight, they never hear me say, YouTube is not the best place to learn. I'm happy I could solve this little problem for you, but that's the tip of the iceberg of the problems you're about to face if you're trying to learn from me on the internet. You know what I mean? Right.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And just go ahead. Sorry, I think we have a small delay.
So that was my issue with people who think that giving away information for free is like we're doing a disservice to the tattoo community. I couldn't disagree anymore.
And there's a lot more work that goes in. Like, same thing, if you go watch, I have some videos that I do my best at the time to specifically show like needle depth, how to kind of figure that out a little bit, hand speed to voltage to power, you know, this ratio, this fine dance we're trying to do with these machines in our hands. But that's only kind of giving you the information. Like, this is my experience. This is how, you know, I've kind of found that works. You're going to go and do that, and it's not going to be right like the first 20 times, you know. You got to actually put in the time. You got to put in the effort. I mean, there's some people that will just pick it up and bam, wham. I mean, that's awesome. But yeah, when we're given information, but really in the whole realm of this whole thing, it's very small, especially when you're being specific, like how to put a tattoo or how to put a stencil on the knee, you know, like, now what? I left, you know what I mean? Like, this is how you do that now, you know, now what? There's a lot more. So I think this education thing, people learning online, is good. I think it's just kind of like pointing people in the right direction. Like, hey, if you want to do this kind of, this is what works for this. If you want to do this, this is kind of like the best I've seen there. And really, I don't really have a lot to give to people. All I have is what little I've learned over a short period of time. And people can take that information and run and make amazing things and do awesome stuff. I mean, if they're selling books back in the day that were like this big, show you how to set, you know what I mean? Like, and people probably did it then. I mean, I did it, but I didn't do it long. So there's so much out there. It's crazy, but yeah. So one quick question. I know we're coming up close. We're a few minutes over. Current.
Yeah, my wife gave me the wrap-up sign a few minutes ago.
Okay, real quick. Because I always ask this one question currently. What's your go-to machine currently, Jake?
Oh man, I don't take sponsorships, or if I do take sponsorships, I don't let them affect what I recommend. I would say that. I just started using that new Numa 4 that Carson Carson, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, but he made Carson Hill. Carson Hill did the original pneumatic machine, the air-powered machine back in the early 2000s, which really set the standard for rotary machines making a comeback, pin style machines, all that kind of stuff. That's what kind of started that whole trend, I think. And he was out of the game forever. He just came back in, and he's got this super cool little interchangeable cam system where he can control not only the stroke, but also the length of time, the dwell time in the skin. And man, if you want to learn a lot about tattooing really fast, buy all of those little cams with the machine. It's an extra $100 or something, and just switch them out and see what they do. Dwell time in the skin is a real thing that I did not understand until I could look at it and I could go, okay, this is 20% dwell time in the skin. I tattoo with it for a minute. This is 40% dwell time in the skin. This is a 3.2 stroke and this is a 4.0 stroke. The way that you can interchange this thing, and it punches like if you're used to coils, this is the pin style machine for you. It's super punchy, super punchy. I love it. Before that, I've only been using it for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but I love it so far. Before that, I was using the Ink Machine Scorpion for most of my line work and color work, and I really love that. For my black and gray, I was using the Bishop wand, the little Bishop wand. I like that thing a lot. I love pin style machines. I've been using pin style machines for a while, but man, that Numa, it truly is something different. It's louder than most pin style machines. It's kind of noisy, not quite like a coil noisy, but noisy. But that thing's a little powerhouse, and just that ability to interchange the cams and get a feel for like how much time the needle is spending in the skin on any one stroke. You know what I mean? Like 40% of the stroke is in the skin, and 20% of the stroke is in the skin, and you don't really think about what that means.
Yeah, no.
Until you use it, and then you go like, oh, okay, I get it. You feel it.
And you find yourself bouncing back and forth between them for various things.
Right now, just because I'm sure that I'll find one that I prefer for one thing or another. But right now, I'm just so infatuated with like the differences in them. Yeah. He sent me I think 4 different cams, and the thing is, he's got these things patented. They're little, like, he said they're not 3D printed, but to me they look like little 3D printed. They're like basically little saucers that have a hill in them, and so it's I don't know how to,
right.
You could probably pull them up on the side, but
okay.
Yeah, so as it spins, however much of it is raised is how much, like the whole cam is 360 degrees, and if 20% of it is a hill, then 20% of the time of that spin it's in the skin.
Oh, that makes sense.
And 80% of the time it's out of the skin. Oh. And so then he has one that's 40%, but he can print that any way he wanted. You know what I mean? Like he could make them. He's not printing them, but he could make them however he wanted. It's worth trying out.
Shit.
And plus he's like a for real, really great tattooer, super smart dude who's been in the industry forever. And as much as I like Cheyenne, FK Irons, Bishop, all the other ones, like this is one dude that's doing something really unique. Nice. So I'm happy to support him. And he's not a sponsor of our show or anything. He didn't.
Right.
Me.
No,
I just
of course.
I like him as a person, and he builds an awesome machine.
I'm about to write it down. I'm in the looking for a new machine. I'm ready to change things up, something different now.
Man, yeah, pick that up. Numa 4.
Numa 4.
Yeah.
Nice. At least I feel like I'm supporting somebody.
Yeah, yeah. And we just did a podcast with him maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was kind of long.
Was that on?
Almost 2
Was
hours
that on
long.
the battery pack and the whole setup that you had there?
Oh no, that's Ty Pilata.
Okay.
But Ty was on this show too. I actually met Carson through Ty. Ty is he's a gearhead. He's all into machines and technical stuff. But I met Carson through him. But the episode we did with Carson, I don't know the episode number. It was 2 or 3 episodes ago. The episode we did with Carson, Ty was on it as well, and it was a great episode. Long but really informative. I learned a ton.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's worth listening to, those longer ones, because that's when a lot of the good stuff comes out. But I know I don't want to keep you, Jake. You're out on the boat. We stole you from your family for an hour. Let them know we appreciate it.
I love that.
And one last thing, go check out Jake at Plug Ugly Art on Instagram and YouTube at Fireside Tattoo Network. Is there anywhere else when they looking for you and your podcast?
Man, that's the best thing. If you go to firesidetattoo.com, we've got courses, merchandise, all the stuff that everyone has that does podcasts. We have some courses with painting courses, watercolor courses, foundation courses for tattooing. We're working on a cool one right now with the great illustrative tattooer Andy Chambers. He's blowing my mind with some of his large scale illustrative layouts for sleeves and stuff. He's had my brain upside down the last few weeks making this course, laying it out. So that's going to be coming out soon. So firesidetattoo.com, we have some of that stuff. But when that thing with Andy comes out, it's going to be next level. He's so good, so good.
Dang, that's going to be awesome to really surround yourself with that caliber. Like that's really something. And even yourself, not taking anything away from yourself, honestly.
Well, thank you.
But anyhow, I do want to real quickly say to everybody in the comments, I apologize I didn't get to anything, but we were just having a good conversation over here. I didn't want to be rude to anybody. So I appreciate you guys all watching, interacting. Maybe you'll catch out something like Jake, and maybe we'll find out that a couple of you guys are married, like in a couple years, maybe. They were married, yeah? Awesome. Somebody just started watching and was like, what? People married? What the hell's going on here?
What are
they doing? And hello to Andy. Sorry, Jake. Just one more second from you, buddy.
That's cool.
Andy, Tuzi, There's a few other people I want to do. Peter, thank you. Alan King, Seven Trumpet. We'll be seeing him again. All right, guys. Any last words, Jake? Are you good?
No, man. Thanks for the invite. I enjoyed the conversation. Let's do it on my channel sometimes. I've got some questions for you as well that I didn't get to.
Awesome, Jake. We'll definitely look that up. All right, guys. Till next time. Peace.